Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, and unity as a whole. Today, I'm interviewing Chelsea Jeheber, a cosmic light channel, medium, and YouTuber with an interest in starseeds. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, what's going on your end then?
Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. Do you want me to just get right into like who I'm channeling now, who I'm talking with?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So did we talk about Urthalia last time?
Maybe a little bit.
She's a benevolent tall gray. She's a high fifth dimension, like on the higher end of the fifth dimension as a fifth dimensional being. And she kind of came in as a sort of cosmic guide, spirit guide. But now we're kind of, go ahead.
When you say five-dimensional, well, there's the density system, the law of one, and then there's dimensions, which are separate systems. So you mean dimensions, right?
Yeah, see, I haven't read Law of One because I know it's like if you're a fourth density being, that means you're in the fifth dimension. That's how Law
Yeah.
of One. Yeah, so I get maybe for the sake of this conversation, just because I don't really know Law of One, or I haven't read, I read the Instagram stuff, but yeah, I mean like the consciousness of the entire collective is in the fifth dimension.
All right, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah. I know it's confusing one. And it's so interesting. Just side note, I've had to like really open myself, not that I wasn't, but to realize like we're all channeling, as in we channelers are all trying so many different forms of information. It can get confusing. But anyway, so excuse me, she is a fifth dimensional light being. And she and I would like work one-on-one with just all my human issues. And then more and more of them started showing up. And so now there's like a group, like in my mind's eye, we meet up and like sit at a table, like we're at a business meeting and kind of walk in.
I'm slightly jealous of you. That sounds great.
I'm like, all right, nerds, what are we doing today? And
Is that your cosmic team?
Yeah. But they're also, it's so, my human mind is still unraveling it. They're my cosmic team, but they're also a part of a greater collective consciousness of mixed races and star beings. So not like the Pleiadian collective is all Pleiadians. They're, have you heard of Bashar?
Yeah, I've heard of Bashar.
Cryon, I think. So I had never heard of him. And a friend last week was like, oh, you should check out Bashar and Cryon. And so they're like, I think, different beings instead of just a collective with one star race, like the Syrian collective or the Arcturian High Council. They're like different beings. So I think that my friend showed me them to be like, okay, I can channel a group of different star races, essentially.
Do they have their own star system or number of star systems?
It would be like, it'd be similar to the Galactic Federation of Light, where they are just a separate segment of that. So it's just all the beings from throughout the universe, a small collection of them. There's about 72 of them that just come together to form their own collective.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's channeling them too. My body, the first time I did it, I felt like I was going to pass out. It's just the energy was just so different than what I'd experienced. So I'm getting used to channeling them.
Right. So she's a tall gray, and there's different types of grays, even different species of grays. And could you clarify grays for me then?
So grays are typically what we would consider the alien emoji that we use. So she has that face. She has those black, dark, slanted eyes, and kind of like the no nose, like the two little slits for nose and a small mouth and the kind of elongated head and forehead. So there's different, she's actually a Zeta, but I call her tall gray because like that would be her race.
Some people
I'm not sure where
there's some,
go ahead.
Some people talk about the Zetas like they're entirely negatively orientated. So what's the truth of the matter?
like humans. So as far as there's some good humans and there's some bad humans, like how, like imagine if an alien came to Earth and landed somewhere horrible on Earth. We won't say where because we don't want to make fun of certain countries like America, but if they landed there at like a certain point in time and only met one certain human and then went back to their people and they're like, freaking Earthlings, they're wild, you know? So it's like that.
We are wild though. Like,
Yeah, we are. But it'd be similar
though,
to.
I'm wondering, aren't we going, isn't this a service to others awakening? That seems to be my impression anyway. It's maybe biased, but maybe
What is our wildness?
No, I imagine after the awakening, if they're fourth density, I guess I can't assume all fourth density societies are the same by any means.
So she's an individual. She doesn't represent the Zeta collective. So it's the same with reptilians. There's some reptilians that are still really stuck in that let's cause harm to other, let's bring on the darkness. And there are reptilians that are going through their own ascension process and awakening process. And so, you know, that's why a lot of people chat to the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and the Sirians, etc., because they've gone through their own ascension process like millions of years ago, eons. So they're like way up there. They're like full light bodied beings. But there are other star races out there that are similar to us. They just have either they're transitioning into their light body, or they're still in a totally physical form, but they're going through their own ascension process. So she would be just part of the group that is of the light. Actually, I say that is in service of love.
So how come you are in the relationship that you have with your cosmic team?
So this is something I haven't shared this with anyone yet, so I'll just share it with you. So I had a session with another channeler medium, and she told me my gifts were going to shift and that I was actually ready to see. And she kind of let me know, like, you're going to see something pretty intense, pretty strange, just be really open to it. And I connected with the Pleiadians just very casually, typically. And I was standing there, they had me stand up and they unzipped me, like in my mind's eye. So etherically speaking, from here all the way down, and I could feel the zipper, I could hear it. And the sort of human suit opened up to the side. And there was this alien type looking being that had, I don't know, like the universe for skin. So it just looks like the stars and planets. And they're like, this is the first image we're showing you of your true self, because they didn't want to show me the full form yet. And I was like, I definitely closed it out right away. I was like, this is kind of intense, too weird. But after further inspection, I did a couple sessions with them. I found that I'm this Zeta hybrid, and there's quite a few of us on planet Earth. I haven't really looked. I really want to go on Google, but I'm trying not to.
As a Starseed.
Yeah, so Starseeds, it's our soul has incarnated elsewhere. As they're showing me, there's also human alien hybrids. So you could be one. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if I'm a Starseed or if I'm an older soul or moderate age soul or what. Like,
I would say both. I would say you're a pretty old soul and you're a Starseed.
Okay, I just don't feel like it's like my first life here. I feel like I've been on Earth for a while. That's all.
Yeah,
you get a sense for that in people.
Yeah, and they were showing me too with before I met you. Gosh, I can't remember. It's in my notes, but especially with children and into adulthood, you know, with either Asperger's or sort of special qualities like that, it's related to Starseed qualities.
I heard that
because you're so tapped, your soul and your consciousness are tapped into multiple realms at once, more so than others. And so that's how it physically expresses itself.
There are potentially disadvantages though, with people being on the spectrum.
I mean, we're human.
In a spiritual sense, because is it possible for someone on the spectrum to end up more left-brained and like out of touch with the spiritual side. I suppose it's possible for anyone.
And that could be part of your soul contract too. I mean, it's
Oh,
how
yeah.
many years did you go without being a spiritual person?
Most of my life.
Yeah, exactly. And so that could have easily been part of your contract to wake back up to yourself in that
Yeah.
form.
Yeah. And I suspect there's other things in my soul contract. So soul contracts, are they, there's a whole bunch of contracts we make with other souls. And I got this
Mhm.
idea that it's like this grand orchestra between souls that's agreed in the spirit world to play out on earth.
Yeah. And the complexity of it too. I was just having a conversation. Someone's asking me about souls and contracts. I'm like, it's beyond what our human imagination can even create. Because exactly the orchestra, it's just so that there's so many lines being weaved and sewn together that it's hard to keep up.
It's collaborative knitting.
Collaborative knitting. It is. It is. I love that.
Well, I suppose you could say it's co-creation.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Hmm.
And when we think about soul contracts, you and I might have a soul contract for the next 2 years, the next 10 years. We don't really know, but you and I have a contract.
How does this play into how does it play into free will determinism then?
It's so it's sort of everything is divinely planned. I would say divinely, but loosely planned. So we have free will, but if something, so a good example could be you and I, like our soul contract. So when you first emailed me, I had free will to say no. And let's say I did. Let's say I was like, you know what? It's not the right time. No. Then maybe a couple days later, a friend would have been like, hey, have you seen this podcast, Ideology to Unity? I'm like, that's so weird. The guy just emailed me, but I'm so busy. And then they could have been like, you should have definitely email him back. And so you can see I made the choice to say no because I was insecure or whatever was going on, but it would still find its way back if it's truly meant to be.
So we keep being given the opportunity again and again if it's.
Yeah. They can't force us. We still have to make our own decision. But you
Right.
probably, like, I've looked back on my life with certain experiences or meeting people where we realize we were in the same, like my partner's a good example, where we realized we were in the same places, but just didn't meet. And I'm like, that's so strange. Like
Wow.
we just would have met, or like down the line, we would have met here. I don't know for sure, but I'm like, oh, okay. I see how that, even if we made one decision, one split second decision that changes our path a little bit, they'll do their best to bring us back around if it's fully meant to be.
Okay. I'm gonna go on a tangent slightly. I'm gonna ask, do you ever need advice for, on one hand, I could ask like how to be present. On the other hand, how to eliminate the barriers to being present.
So when you just mean finding presence, awareness in just
Being
in the
present
present
as
moment?
opposed to in your ego.
Oh yeah. I find we are so disconnected from our bodies. I think people get really, not everyone, of course, but I've encountered people where their head is just so in the clouds, like they're so in space, especially me as a channel, and like you're receiving downloads as well, that becoming embodied actually really helps with that. And that can be through dance, meditation, slow movement, yoga. I mean, I know those are pretty cliche examples, but that's like for me, I find when we're disembodied, because we're here to be in this physical vessel 100%, even if we can talk to aliens, even if we are chatting with our spirit guides all day. So I think becoming embodied really helps with that presence aspect.
Okay. Yeah, it's something I kind of want to ask anyone who's had an awakening, really. Because that's the
Yeah.
main struggle. It's the struggle to awaken. Well, maybe struggle is not the right word, but
Mm.
maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, and the ego aspect, it's just a reminder our ego is there to protect us, and it's been imprinted with, millions of years of evolution of the flight or fight response. So when our fear comes in, even when we're, to me, I'm like, it's so funny to feel insecure. I deal with a lot of insecurities, or I have over the years, or when I'm outside of it, I have the awareness of it. That's so silly that I felt weird to talk to someone or to ask a question, you know? Like, did you ever feel nervous to ask a question, like of the teacher in class, like to raise your hand?
Yeah, but there's one time I kept on, I was insecure that I'd got something wrong or didn't understand. So I kept asking him, like, and made a fool of myself. Well, at least whatever that means. Like,
You
that's just
felt, yeah,
scary. And because I was like, what if I didn't get it right? Because that's a different insecurity. But then I was still insecure about like what people thought of me. Honestly, that's still an issue. Like, a lot of people
yeah.
have that. What do people think of me? And so people might try to fit in a lot to do
And
that.
it, and so with the ego too, you had that experience in class, and I've had something similar, and it imprints on you so that later down in the life you might be, you know, for me, be scared to ask a question because what if I'm wrong? And the ego's like, don't do this. It didn't work out last time. We need to
Oh yeah.
protect each other, you know, and it just keeps creating this pattern that never ends unless you bring absolute awareness to it.
But we choose the patterns that we end up with, right? Especially when it
Yeah.
comes to like parents.
Yes. Yes. The parent aspect is, if you can, you know, regardless if your parents were challenging or not, I think we all had a little bit of challenges with our parents. That's just being kids and teens and whatnot. But if you can come to a place where you just look at your parent as this human that had their own parents and their own set of insecurities and patterns and conditions that they grew up with, it's really kind of creates this huge shift.
Because maybe they're doing great considering their parents.
Absolutely. And they're just doing the best they can with what they have, which
Yeah.
is every human. And when you have that sort of, you know, blanket of compassion, it it completely shifts your awareness of how you look at people.
Does it help with people who might be hurting you or have hurt you?
Yeah, I think when you're in it, it's challenging because
Mm.
you're in the pain. You're basically swimming in that the deep depths of that pain or worry or trauma. But on the other side, after some healing, like if you were in a really toxic relationship or experienced trauma on any aspect of the scale, doing that work after where you can find peace with someone, I think would really benefit everyone. And it's not
Mm.
excusing them, it's just forgiving them for their humanness.
There's this idea of a metta meditation, or metta with two T's.
Mm,
And it's this idea that you're kind of like, I get the impression it's kind of like blessing people with, or setting the
that's
intention
right.
for them to have like inner happiness or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I've heard of that.
so I'm trying that out recently. Hopefully it.
How's it going?
Um, sometimes it feels good, but other times it's kind of like, I don't want to get that. You're going to be careful not to expect to feel good too much, because then you're
Hmm.
doing it to get some sort
For
of
yourself.
catharsis. And I'm doing it anyway, even if I'm not getting that feeling. Um, I think that's important. But
Do you
yeah,
bless anyone?
you can
Like,
do
do
it.
you just bless
You can
people
do
in
it
your
with
life?
anyone.
People.
You do it
Okay.
with anyone, but particularly people you're feeling negative towards,
Mm,
or you might feel negative towards you, or whatever, right? And it's like, because it's like if someone, maybe someone just cuts in front of you when you're driving, right? And you feel
bless
really,
you.
you swear at them, and then you're like, wait, they're actually got their own stuff going on. Maybe I could just, wish them to have like inner peace.
Yeah,
What do you think of it?
I love that. I've been yelling at people a lot lately while driving.
Bless
Do you
you.
ever, yeah, do you ever
Not
like
that.
notice where you're more aggro than other time? Like usually I just drive and I'm very peaceful. And
I
lately I've
don't
just been
actually
like,
drive. For
oh,
medical
that
reasons.
makes sense. But
But
uh
hmm,
yeah, I just notice I'll like yell at people and be like, you effing idiot, learn how to drive. And I'm like, this person that doesn't really talk like that, at least not in my car. And so, yeah, maybe I need to do that. Bless the people, bless this mess.
Yeah, it's a lot of mess these days.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at the
Mm-hmm.
world and all this, well, politics, for example, you get so much division, right? And
Yeah.
so, what have you had any valuable insight from guides or anyone you've channeled about bridging these divides?
It really starts, it's so, let me see what they're saying, 1 second. And so what they keep showing me time and time again, we're going into this age that surpasses the guru. It's not really about looking up to teachers anymore, putting people on pedestals. It's we are our own teacher, we are our own guru, our own spirit guide in a way. And with that comes a lot of internal work. And so I think what's happening, and there's a lot of great pain in the world, and people really put all their focus on the external, but there's only so much you can do. You can march, you can share information, 100, you can donate, there's so many things you can do, but to a certain point you can only go so far. And so what they remind me personally time and time again is just do the internal work, whatever that may look like, so that your energy, because we're going into the age of energy, that's basically the entire age of Aquarius, is really seeing that we are all energy and that we are interconnected. So if I do my energy, you and I have an energy line, so then that will start to trickle into yours. It won't penetrate you, it can't take over your body, but it's complete resonance.
Huh. I had this
And
image of
love is
like the lines that are coming out from people in Donnie Darko.
exactly, yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah. But probably more
And so that,
going on than that.
but what?
There's probably more going on than just what was shown in the film. But it's about the
Oh
law of
yeah.
correspondence, right? The as above, so below sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got happened to this idea recently, and I'll bounce it off you, of if you want to transform your life, transform within, and the external world will just reflect that.
Absolutely. And it shifts your perception. I mean, we literally we live in a holographic universe, and sometimes people don't understand when I say that. I'm like, it's just an illusion. Like, if you took away your sight, your taste, your smell, your touch, what would you be left with? We are seeing this world because we are experiencing it through our senses. So if you take those away, do you have a world to experience? You're pretty much left with your consciousness and a lot of nothingness.
That might actually
you know
cause awakening if that actually happens to someone.
Oh yeah, that's maybe that's like what the Buddhists do in deep meditative states.
They cut off their access to their senses, you mean? Right.
And so going back to, yeah, just that would shift your perception. So if you recognize you are the creator of this illusion you're seeing, so it's my perception of you doesn't represent you, it represents how I see you, and I can shift that in a second, and vice versa. And so you can start small. Instead of looking at a weed, lame, like silly example, but a weed on the sidewalk, like sometimes weeds are really beautiful. Like we have really beautiful weeds here in Australia that
We
are
do.
different than American soil, and they're flowery and they're gorgeous. So it's just that completely shifted my perspective of weeds. Start small and just work your way out.
I mean, we've got something called bindweed over in the UK, and it actually looks really pretty. But the
Yeah.
thing is, so it's choking the plant it's on, but it itself looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. So, and it's so challenging to do that with certain political figures, to sit there and recognize, going back to talking about all adults used to be children, that they themselves used to be these children with maybe not great parents and not the greatest, most loving upbringing. Does that excuse their actions? Of course not. But if we can open our minds to that, the mind unraveling will just continue.
By mind unraveling, you mean ego unraveling?
Like expanding,
Ah, okay.
the expansion of your vision and the physical and the non-physical.
Well, so I'm just not sure what to ask. So do we get tested by sometimes by other people during the dark night of the soul, and if not afterwards? And what's your experience with that?
I see everyone as our mirrors. So, you know, your partner is not your lover, your kid's not your kid. They're all just mirrors reflecting back to us, either our own high self-worth or low self-worth. And so if you're being tested by someone, it's probably something within you that needs to be healed or wants to be healed.
Yeah, and I suppose you do want to heal yourself or something, but like
Sometimes you don't
don't
have
know
the
how.
awareness though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're triggered by someone or tested by someone, you're like, oh, that person's so annoying, or they're so catty, or they're such idiots. It's like there's something inside of you that may feel that it's shadow work that may feel like you're an idiot. You know, if you judge someone for, I don't know, they're bringing out their groceries and they drop it and you're just like, wow, what an idiot. Like that's probably a reflection of something that is inside of you that wants to be healed.
Yeah.
And
So
so it's just called shadow work.
so what's going on what's going on at the moment in like spiritually and or like the light codes or whatever, like astrologically perhaps? Like what's the situation?
As I see it, there's new, so we have like the matrix, which I see as like a red sort of spidery, gross spider web all over Earth.
Right.
And then we have the universal grid. I should say we have like the universal grid of consciousness, which I think is like the walls of the universe, the boundaries of the universe, if there is such a thing. But we also have like Earth's actual grid. And they're showing me it's kind of like that, it's like a weaving and they'll remove lines. So like, you know, there's a couple of strings attached. And then when we heal something or we remove something, these grid workers will come in and take out that sort of line that is no longer serving Earth and replace it with a new higher vibrational one.
Okay.
So we're doing a lot of like energy grid work on the individual level. I mean, think of all 2020. Like we're all forced into some deep, dark shadow stuff. And so that reflects what's happening to Earth on a consciousness level.
Right. Um, have you been involved in any of that?
Not a grid worker. They show, I guess there's light workers, there's grid workers, there's energy workers. I'm not as they show me any of that, but I see it. Like sometimes I'll go up to the divine grid and just kind of sit there and I'm like, good job, guys. Great work. And I just kind of can see. So it's similar to energy, like a line will represent someone's consciousness or a thought or an emotion. And when it's healed, they remove it. So, but sort of what I do with my cosmic team is really, I guess, as they've shown me, I'm here as a teacher. So we all kind of meet up with them at our cool little business roundtable and just ask like kind of what do people need to be taught right now? What do people need to know about themselves to feel empowered, to feel as their true sovereign selves? And so we have a lot of conversations about that. We're definitely going into an empowerment age, that's for sure.
Some people these days are worried that the awakening's not going well or something. I'm not sure. Like there was this one person I was following recently and I stopped following them. But I saw a video about them saying that I don't know, they seem to be complaining about the New Age community saying that it's not going well at all.
Mm.
But I kind of see some of the things going wrong as waking people up. But what's your opinion about the situation?
Yeah, I mean, just to even put a label on something as good or bad is just because 5D is such a popular buzzword, that's going to take you from a fifth dimensional reality. So if you're saying this awakening isn't good enough or it's bad, like to me, that's just really interesting. And I'm seeing a lot of that in the spiritual community. And to me, it's just all part of the ruffling of the feathers. Like that just needs to be released. Like with
Okay.
that individual.
Maybe if
So if we're
they're getting that off their chest, at least there's something good.
Yeah, yeah, it's just more worry about yourself. Not saying this to you, but like when people become, obsessed with what other people are saying or looking up to others, it's like this reminder that we're meant to go within. But yeah, just to say like we're not getting far enough, it's like on what are they measuring it with? You know what I mean? Like that we have no
Right.
form of measurement because we haven't been here before.
Hmm.
And yeah, things are pretty tough and sticky, but it reminds me of I don't know if people are going to get this, but so we have a dog and we've been training our dog and we do like the clicker and the reinforcer. And the trainer let us know that when you're enforcing or teaching a new trick, that they'll actually backpedal, the dogs will, and they'll keep doing the bad thing, the quote unquote bad thing they don't want you to do. You don't want them to do. And I feel like it's the same thing with humanity, where it's like we're all learning a new way to be better, more awakened humans, but we're kind of reverting really quickly to the old ways. And that's kind of how I see it.
I guess when it's new, it takes time to really get used to it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same like on an individual scale. Let's say you're trying to lose weight and eat healthier. You might start off really good. That first week you're working out every day, you're eating your veggies. And then after a couple of weeks, you kind of revert back to the old ways, have a dark night of the soul, eat a Snickers, whatever. And then you're like, wait, no, I really do want this. And then you get better and you slowly but surely get there. So it's like that.
Right. Well,
That's just what we're going through.
Speaking of diet, what do you think about eating meat when it comes to awakening?
Someone just asked me this on Instagram yesterday. There's no law, there's no rule that says you have to not eat meat to use your energetic gifts, be a spiritual person, come into your power. It just doesn't exist. It's all a personal choice. We're all on our own journey when it comes to food. I will say though, and this is, I believe, a Buddhist notion that when an animal suffers, we ingest that suffering. And I kind of believe that. Like it would be really hard for me. I don't personally eat meat or dairy, but no judgment to those that do. I think if you were to think about food as energy and vibration, what would be the most high vibrational thing you could eat? Probably something like fruits and vegetables. Doesn't mean that's all you have to eat,
Yeah,
but
perhaps. Yeah, I've been wondering that. I mean, maybe having a bit less meat. But I'm
yeah.
wondering, if you ingest their suffering, what if you can process that suffering and somehow help, maybe by
It'd
processing?
be on like a lineage scale, you can, like, I think about that. I think about the consciousness of horses because horses have always been used in human wars. So I'm
Oh
always
yeah,
wondering, like, what's their consciousness? Like, what's that like? And then, same, like just using cows as an example, I'm like, man, the suffering, because if we think about like the book, The Body Keeps the Score, I haven't read it, but I have it in my Amazon and I think about it a lot because it's like we retain the emotional happiness, joy, or trauma, and then that's passed down to our ancestors. So I always think about that in the scale of animals too, if it's the same passing along.
I guess it all makes
And
up part of our. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, just going back what you were saying, I think we can help heal, but if you're gonna keep eating meat, I don't think I think that'd be spiritual bypass.
To keep
Like
eating
I think
meat.
you can, oh no, to eat the meat, but then say, oh, I can heal this animal's trauma or
Oh, it's a way
outcome,
to
I
try
say.
to. Okay. Is this a way of like, is there a positive aspect to this? But if you're denying the negative, then that's bypassing.
Yeah, I would say so. again, nothing wrong with eating meat, like personal choice. We're all, but yeah, like, and it's so challenging too, because like beings, they either don't eat a lot or they don't eat at all. And I don't think they eat animals. I'm not
I
100%
guess we can
sure.
pace ourselves though, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people in the health, meat is like back, like people are like, oh, well, our ancestors ate meat. I'm like, yeah, for sure. But that was, one goat a month. It wasn't every day. And I think our bodies work better on having like veggies, grains, and like a little bit of protein. And I see a lot more health people in the wellness world kind of advocating for that, where they still eat meat, but it's not like steak, like taking up half your plate. It's, less than the size of your, like half the size of your fist.
Yeah, I mean, and generally with food and with other things, there's a point where you're indulging for maybe the dopamine or the pleasure, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like maybe it's a coping mechanism, or maybe it's a way of, it's kind of egoic, I guess. But there's something about it which is like, I'm not sure how to put it. Do you know what I'm getting at? It's kind
Like the pleasure.
yeah, that maybe the way, it's nothing wrong with it inherently, but overindulging in it might be sorry, I don't know how to put it.
No, well, yeah, I think so. Think about Native Americans. They would hunt when they needed to hunt. They would bless the animal, thank it for its life. I don't know if tigers are blessing an elk when they kill it, but to me, it felt like in a similar exchange. But when we have like this mass production assembly line of just suffering
Oh
and pain,
yeah.
I think where a shift needs to occur, a major shift,
When it's
because that's just
there's something
yeah.
so heartless about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's so much of what we're doing with industrialization, like the way it treats the plants
Mm-hmm.
and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Gaia is, or Mother Earth, I'm sure she doesn't enjoy it at all. So
Yeah, I mean, just the sheer, putting the suffering aside and the death aside, like the sheer pollution from it all, just seeping into the earth and into our atmosphere. So I could see a major shift with that happening within the next 100 years or so. We'll
yeah.
see. But
What about the nuclear
yeah,
aspect of things?
gosh, I don't really know. It's so interesting to me. They kind of laugh at the ETs laugh at us, not laugh at us. They're very loving beings, but that we even just mess with nuclear. Like they're just like, there's so many better ways, but someone has to figure it out. And so,
I suppose. I mean, it's
yeah, what's
interesting.
your
This
opinion?
technology that has been kept from us, and we were
Mm-hmm.
allowed to engage in these other things when we didn't even
Mm-hmm.
have to.
Exactly.
Uh,
So perhaps there's a play.
yeah,
There's
some
a,
sort of plan going on. Yeah.
yeah, I
I
feel
mean, I
that
could get into
too. Where,
conspiracy theories. Oh, it's a cabal and all that, which I
yeah,
do
but no,
believe in. But I don't think. Do you think that maybe the power is given away to them? It's not just that. Oh, there's the various plots, but there's this wider interaction going on where they're part of the collective, and we kind of give them their power, and it's like it's not as
who's
simple.
them?
Them,
Oh,
the
that. Okay,
cabal, the
yeah,
Illuminati. I do
yeah.
think they
Okay,
exist. I just don't think if we demonize them, if we basically treat them like the boogeyman, we won't actually be recognizing our role in giving away our own power.
absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I know it's fun to go down a few conspiracy wormholes.
Oh yeah.
I do it every now and then. You're like, the thing with they're so dangerous sometimes because then you come out and you're like, I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know. Am I real? Like, I don't know.
But the spirituality can do that, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had a few moments like that too. I'm like, why are we here?
But
What's
some
the
of it's
point?
lovely, isn't it? It's these wonderful moments where I don't know if it's what's real, but it's It's just like the breaking, something might like breaking the fourth wall of reality or something.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. It's when you feel that divine love, and people think love is only like this romantic emotion, and it's just this overwhelming pureness of just being yourself, just being who you are, your true essence, which is this soul just doing all these incarnations, traveling through space and time.
Yeah. So what do you know about astrology, and how does it fit into the awakening that's ongoing?
I look at it as one, just something fun. So I'm not very dogmatic with it. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a Virgo, I can't date so and so. And there's so much going on in our charts. I asked them if I asked the light beings if they use astrology on other planets or if it's just an earthly thing. And they use it similarly, but not exact. But for us, I think it's just a map. I think it's a way to keep us connected to the cosmos,
It's
to
energetic.
recognize that. Yeah, 100%. So it's like this energetic map of how the stars and planets were placed at certain moments in time. And that creates a certain energy or vibration. And I mean, again, think how I said at the top of this podcast, it's like each month has, we have Aries and so forth, it's working with a different energy. And then we have each person is represented by one of those energies or frequencies. And so it's just this whole, again, like fabric of different frequency, and we're all just woven together. And, if we had a planet of just only Virgos, we'd get a lot done, but where would the creativity be, And if we had a planet of only like Sagittariuses, we'd have really freedom seeking people who would probably be always traveling, but then get nothing done, So not exactly sure 100%, but I just see it as like this big cosmic map to help us get through life.
Right. So do you think that where stars move is all just like how what individuals do individuals move around Earth according to a broader plan that's weaving
Mm.
like a grand plan or an orchestra. But is there an orchestra of the movements of stars in the same way?
I would say yes, but I'm not. Yeah, I would just have to say yes. I heard a yes right away, but I myself don't fully understand it or comprehend it. It's a lot. It's a lot for our human minds to even just begin imagining.
Yeah. So our star isn't it Ra at the moment?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, like what our sun is called.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that's the being the raw materials based on
Mm-hmm.
at the moment anyway. So so what are the have you ever are they generally what's the most interesting channeling experience you've had?
Honestly, I would have to be up until now that zipper experience,
Huh.
because that just was the weirdest. I could just feel it in my body, and it felt like when my eyes were closed, it felt like I was there. And I'm still tripping about it. I'm still just like, what happened? What am I being shown? But um,
Your
and then
source.
just yeah, exactly. Just who I am on a more cosmic, multidimensional level.
Right.
And that's a big part of the awakening, realizing we are these multidimensional beings. We're not just one soul having one incarnation.
How do you discern if you're dealing with a being of light or being of darkness?
I have a good trick now, which I find to be foolproof, is if you're in contact with a being, because they can create a false light vibration where they can feel kind of nice. One, they will never tell you to do anything. The amount of people I've had several people come into my DMs and be like, yeah, the light beings, I work with them. They told me I should do this, and they told me I need to do that, and that I'm the protector of this earth. And I'm like, they would never tell you to do that. Like, I just don't respond because I don't want to get in an argument and tell them what's going on with their reality, but they'll never say, you need to do this or you should do that. They're here to share guidance. They're here to share messages of ascension and expansion. So that's a good point. But if you're unsure, ask them, do you serve love? Are you in service of unconditional love? Because if you ask them if they serve God or if they serve source, we live in a dualistic universe. We live in a universe of polarity. And so someone creating a horrible act is still in service of God, because God is the creator. God created light and dark. It doesn't mean that that horrible act serves the highest and greatest good, but me causing harm to someone, like let's say I cheated on someone, like that's still in service of God, because that's part of the balance of light and dark. So if you ask them that, they'll say, yes, of course I've been in service of God. Doesn't matter. But if you say, do you serve love? They have to answer, and they'll say yes or no. And if they say no, ask them to leave and command them to leave, and they should. And if they don't, there's something, I'm not exactly sure, but they should leave. They respect boundaries. It's when we open up our field or don't have clear boundaries that they know they can seep in.
So it's like there's rules, but they don't hold back if you don't really understand the rules.
They're tricky. Yeah. And so that's what people, you know, if someone's like, I want to channel, but I'm scared, I'm like, work on that fear. Because if you have fear that you're going to be haunted or penetrated by an evil being, you're opening your ordeal to that.
It's not like I haven't tried it out at all. I even had a little bit of interaction with the Arcturians, but I feel like I'm not ready yet. I've definitely got fear I'm working on. And especially if you're in like the dark night of the soul or something, or even if you haven't had it yet, especially like maybe hold off, do the inner work.
And it doesn't have to be months and months of working on this fear. It's just writing out, like, what are you scared of? Facing that fear of like, I'm scared, and you know, an evil spirit or alien's going to take over my body. Like, that's a logical fear. Just write it out and get it out of there. But it's so easy to me to create boundaries and practice them just a couple of times to always have them up. And that can look like always grounding your energy, opening your heart space, and making commands. I command to only connect with light divine beings or divine beings of the light.
What about when you're sleeping? Sorry. when we sleep, sometimes we might wake up and we're like, what's that thing? We get sleep paralysis, or we might hear something, or hear something just before we wake up, or there can be some interesting, weird experiences people have in bed. And
I would say you're protected, but then also you might be suffering from psychic attacks, which that's a thing. And that's just, you either can see someone about that or do a boundary clearing process. I've definitely had some weird stuff happen when I'm sleeping, but it also felt like it was a part of my karmic contract. It just felt like, but so weird. The other night I was falling asleep, or no, I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and I was just laying there with my eyes closed, and I heard, it was my partner, how he would say my name, like Chelsea. It was a whisper, but I knew he was asleep, and it freaked me out. Have you ever had that, like, where you hear your name or hear something?
Yeah. I've had what, when you're awake, or just as you wake
like,
up? Like
as you're waking up or falling asleep, so that in between.
Yeah. I've had Nick. I didn't like it. That was unpleasant. But at least it's doing the inner work, you know, indirectly. At least I'm actually toughening me up, I suppose.
And they were just saying something too, real quick. They're, you know, we're more open when we're half awake or half asleep. And so maybe it's scary to us, but they don't mean to be scary. It's just, we're more open. So we're hearing, like when I heard the Chelsea, it's because it was so loud and clear, where usually it just sounds like it's in my mind's eye. So they're like, it was just his soul, I think, talking to me. And like the same with you, that could have just been your spirit guides. But they like,
Yeah,
that's the
but I've heard about like
we,
fake spirit guides, so I've got a little bit concerned recently.
yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
anything? Is there anything they want to say to me, your team, or anything?
So as soon as you said you tried to communicate with Octurians, they like came through right away. And I have a feeling you're an Octurian starseed, because I was like, he's not Palladian, he's something old and ancient, he's not Syrian. So I was either feeling a little bit Lyran, but then when you said the Octurians, a huge like light bulb went off. And for you too, it's, you actually are a really clear channel, and what you're going through is yeah, you can do what I do. I've been doing more conscious
I don't
channeling.
know. I thank you for telling me. So, because I feel like I couldn't really make out. I don't really the trust of us what I'm doing yet.
Well, that's what they're kind of showing me right now. They're like, you're going through all this stuff of, you know, like distrusting and not sure, and then there's fear and what if this, and so you're going, all the gunk's being removed for you to be a clear channel.
Yeah,
Because we're still human.
I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure we'll be able to play with all sorts of interesting things when I'm ready, and I'll just gotta get through this. And
but yeah, I would say the
everyone else have got to do
Octurians,
that too. So
yeah, I would say the Octurians, they already do work with you and through you. It's
in
just
their own
you.
way, but I don't
Yeah.
need to be aware of it, right?
Mm-mm.
Sometimes I get these like it feels like I'm coming up with it, but it's not necessarily true. But it's like these abstract images of how things fit together.
Absolutely. And so what they're saying is, so your really old soul, well, let me see what they want to say. So you're doing quite a few incarnations all at once, and like you can connect with your Arcturian self, and you as a being specifically chose to be here with like a certain set of skills. I always think of like Liam Neeson and Taken. You have a certain set of, I have a certain set of skills. I always, because they say that, and I'm like, I can't tell if you guys are making fun of me, but you're meant to be speaking. And I feel like we had this conversation last time. Like when I talk to you, I just feel so relaxed. I just feel like so at ease in your presence. And that's your soul essence coming through. And you're meant to be speaking. You're meant to be seen on screen. I don't know if there's a block there, but they're like, oh, he'll definitely be doing some form of channeling work. It doesn't have to be trance channeling. It could, whatever you want to make of it, but you will be working, they want to say initially, with the Arcturians. Because I feel like you are Arcturian.
Huh.
You just got this like old wisdom vibe with you.
Thanks. Well, I suppose ultimately we're just all like that, we're all souls in a sense. Because there is this spiritual ego thing where some people are like, oh, I'm this kind of starseed and this is who I am. Where it's more like, I mean, it is kind of me, like what kind of history I have, I suppose. But it's not like the core of it, maybe.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to that labeling thing. You know, I'll have clients or people where I'm like, oh yeah, like you're Palladian. And then they change their Instagram handle to Palladian Starseed. And the light beings, they don't really have labels. They don't have hierarchy. And they, you know, they'll point out to me, and this isn't how they said it, but to me, I'm like, okay, if fifth dimensional reality is not about separation, it's about unity, and labels create separation, you know? So it's like, if you're like, I'm a Palladian starseed and I'm joined this Palladian Facebook group, it's like, that's creating more separation. It's fine to find similar like-minded people, but it's like such a fine line here in this three-dimensional plane, you know?
You know, I just have this idea that you said there's no hierarchy, and I just feel like, man, anarchists will love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the hierarchy thing too, because humans, I should say, they just think they're above us, and they're not. It's just, they just are operating at a different frequency of awareness.
Right. And the ones that do view themselves as above us, we've got to watch out for, maybe.
Yeah, I would say that. It's the same with earthlings. You know, it's
Yeah.
you know a lot about someone, how they treat a waitress or a barista. Like, that's hierarchy in our three-dimensional reality. If you mistreat someone because they're a server, you know, you think you're better than someone because they're working at a restaurant or the coffee shop or what have you, you know.
What does someone do
That's a
if they're
very,
awakening, but they've mistreated people in the past?
could do your metta meditation.
I suppose it's
We've
just
all
being
done
kind
that.
to
Like,
yourself, right? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've been there too, where I just was like, oh shit, that wasn't very nice
Hmm.
10 years ago. And I kind of got stuck in a loop of like, do I email this person? And it's recognizing, it's actually coming back and having compassion for yourself. Because when we inflict pain on others, it's because we are suffering ourselves.
What you could do, here's an idea for the listener. You could, instead, if you feel like you've done something to someone, you write an imaginary letter to them and don't send it. Or maybe
Absolutely.
burn it, but don't burn your house.
Yeah.
That's not a good idea.
No, don't burn the house down. But I like the letter writing
Yeah.
because and I do a little bit of manifestation work. And sometimes we are asked in the modules to bring forward in our mind's eye the person that caused us harm. And so this is reverse, but I will speak out loud. So I'll be in meditation and the person will be there in my mind's eye, but I'm speaking out loud. Like I'm talking to you, I'll be like, you know what, that effing hurt. That wasn't cool. That, you know, standing up for yourself, that's really healing too. So I think the common ground with these two examples is getting the energy out, writing it on paper, saying it out loud. Doesn't have to be to the actual person. Doesn't matter if they caused you harm or you caused them. Get that energy out of your body.
Is it about just letting yourself feel it?
Yeah. We don't like feeling bad feelings. I mean, 100%, that's it right there. And I remember too, during COVID, I heard this song. It was a Radiohead song, and it reminded me of my ex-boyfriend when I was like 18. And I think he cheated on me or something, but I just rebounded really quickly. I just was like, out of here, see you never, like trying to be that like empowered woman and not cry. And I heard the song that we used to listen to, and I just burst into tears and totally grieved and mourned that relationship and the pain. And then after, I was like, whoa, that's been inside of me, that pain for 10 years. How have I been projecting that pain onto other people without knowing it, you know?
It's a
So I
powerful
always told
question.
myself, yeah, because I always told myself I was fine. Are you kidding? I found out and I just yelled at him and told him to F off and I left. But I didn't cry. I just held it in.
Yeah, if you act like that, then you're not fine, are you?
No. Back then, I thought I was just like this independent woman that doesn't take shit from anyone. But now I recognize like it would have been perfectly healthy to cry and to be angry or what have you, you know?
And I noticed that my ego has I'm moving into this more unity focused mentality, right? But back when I was on I had a side. I was on a side politically, right? And I'm like, there's this whole programming, I guess you could say, from when I was on that side. And sometimes it's just like someone says something, we're like, yeah, but there's this. And I'm like, wait, oh yeah, I'm actually more about unity now, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I
Isn't
suppose you can
awareness just
recognize
everything?
it is, yeah. And I see people who are still fighting that battle that I was fighting, or whether they're my side or the other side or some other side. And well, they're all on my side really. But
Yeah.
you know, based on the old perceptions. And it's kind of sad, but at the same time, at least we can be grateful that we've learned things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you kind of take a step back and you're on the outside of things, like I just saw an argument on Facebook. I don't really go on Facebook much anymore, but I do for my family, just living in a separate country than them. And it's the same thing where I'm like, oh, it's so interesting that they're getting so angry and they're causing this whole storm over just two different opinions on something. And it just, yeah, I think there is a sad element to it, but then there also is a, wow, I used to be that person. Like I used to hop in Facebook comments and start a riot, you know, and it's like, now it's just not worth my time or energy.
It was kind of fun
But
on some level.
because you feel like you're achieving something and you feel like you're better. Well, at least for me, I would
Yeah,
feel like,
it's a way to
I'm
help.
better than you.
It's not just that, it's like maybe I can contribute to society by changing one person's mind somehow.
Yeah. Like
No,
they're clearly so stupid that they are just seeing this wrong, and I'm going to help them see the way they should see.
which just happens to be my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's a lot of that. And we have a lot of work to do as a collective, specifically within that realm of just social media and sharing comments. Because I mean, the big issue is you would never say half the things one says on social media to someone in person.
That's
You
what
know?
exists, so that we can let off karma from how many lifetimes of all that arguments and fighting and everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good way to look at it, because it's like, yes, I don't know what that shift will look like. And social media itself is such a weird animal in its own right. It's just getting deeper and deeper, and it helps. It's great, but it's also just so interesting to think 30 years ago, it just, none of this existed.
Yeah. And there is something to the idea of like, if people are doing it more and not interacting in person as much, there's something lost, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Do you have any insights you'd like to share?
I think, yeah, just something, a kind of final note from them. They just showed me the word remembrance. And if we can just even, so you, the listener, maybe some of this is new to you, maybe it's not. If you're here, it's probably not. But we really are going into this stage as individuals, remembering who we truly are. And I can speak from personal experience that I've seen some aspects of myself that I'm still getting used to that would have never even filled my imagination 2 years ago. And so it's recognizing that there is so much more to who we are. We are more than just human. We are more than just beings. We are more than just a soul. And we're here to remember that. We're here to wake up back to that. That's for sure.
Okay. And I have to say thank you for your team for being here. I feel like it's not just us two.
No, it's not. Well, we have your team now too. We have like your people.
Oh, have you been talking to them as well?
They're just, I can just feel them behind you. They feel mostly Octurian, but there's some other people too that I'm just like, can't really see them. But yeah, it wasn't just us two, that's for sure.
All right, it's a conference, pretty much. Wow. Okay. That's what Zoom's for, right? Conference calls.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So thank you for listening, and thank you for coming on, Chelsea.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, always a pleasure.
All right. Bye.
Bye.